Welcome back to Royal Anoles. Now, I'm Cameron if you're new here, but in short, today we're going to be covering 5 anoles, from a twig ninja to a canopy sprinter to a lowland shrub, I don't know, hiding animal, something smart, yeah. Now today I'm going to show you how each of these animals behave in their natural environment, use their environment, and what this is just all about. Real fun stuff if you ask me. Anyways folks, grab your snacks, grab your water, whatever you want, and let's watch this video. Now folks, Puerto Rico hides possibly one of the more larger anoles on the island. Well, it is the largest anole that is still alive on the island and that we, well, know about. That, well, lives where the leaves touch the sky. Now, this means they're a crowned giant. They're all the way at the top of the tree. But this isn't just any anole, this is Anolis cuvieri. Now, if you ask me in a short, little, concise way how to explain it, you take Anoles, you make them bold, and you make them big. That's basically what they are. Oh, and they're all basically green, except a couple weird offshoots. Yeah. But these anoles' body plan is quite, well, robust, as you can say. They're built for the upper canopy, which, you know, gets them some cool perks like having larger heads, having bigger toe pads, having larger nails, having a larger just body itself, and a longer tail. Just a more bulkier build, a more chunky build than what you're gonna see with something that's gonna be more low level to the ground. Now folks, in Puerto Rico's sun-baked dry forest, basically, you know, this area of the forest that just has a lot of UV exposure, so it gives them a very, you know, crispy feel, if you catch my drift. But there's one anole here that runs the bark highways, fast dashes, bright dewlap, creamy color, and honestly, describing it, there's no other anole that fits this description besides Anolis cookie. Yeah, this is a really interesting anole. Real quick before we get to the rest of it, they're not really known to be anywhere else in Nobby except like a really small population all the way up in Canada. So maybe in a couple years they'll be more widespread, but yeah. This anole will be found in Puerto Rico, as all anoles in this video will be. But to be more specific, they're going to be found all the way in the more southwest area, especially around the iguana-level Rodro dry forest belt. That's all on the screen. And in coastal shrubs. Now, if you ask me, coastal shrubs is the more easier place to find them, because that's where most of the photos of this species comes from, on these coastal shrub shoreline areas. Really interesting if you ask me. So real quick, let's get back to our topic on hand. Imagine a thick, hot, open, widely edges with scattered trees and a couple limestone outcrops here and there. That's basically Anolis cuvieri's environment. Now, since they do inhabit that larger sense of area than, say, the first one we talked about, you know, they're going to be hunting on more broad trunks, basically more lower levels on the tree, and they're going to, you know, run into occasional competition with the crescent anole, which, if anyone's sitting at home, yes, they're the ones that are invasive in Florida. Really interesting if you ask me. On one island, being Puerto Rico, there lives a small little lizard, so small, so secretive, it sleeps on twigs thinner than a pencil you can get in your classroom. If you go to school, I don't think anyone does, at least watching by like my audience statistic. But it also vanishes in plain sight thanks to how they look. This is a twig anole, not just any twig anole, Anolis oculates. Yeah. It's on the screen. This is a really neat anole if you ask me. They're endemic to the island's central mountain belt from Sarria de Carran to Marco. It's all on the screen. But it's Puerto Rican's smallest anole and a classic, you know, textbook twig anole. So, to the people watching, you're probably wondering, how do they avoid predators? It's very simple. They just sit and become the stick. Because if you know anything about twig anoles, their whole meta, their whole little idea in the world is to basically blend in where people aren't looking. You know, people are going to be looking, well, in this case, when I say people, I'm thinking like other anoles, right? English, my bad. You know, these other anoles are going to basically running the whole other part of the tree, running up and down, top of it, shrubs, whatever. These guys are going to basically just be living on the little branches shooting off from the tree, hunting smaller insects, hiding under the canopy leaves. Very unique animal. Love twig anoles. Hi folks, guess what? I want to do a weird face because I'm be asking you to sub, like, share, and do whatever you want with this video. I hear there's a new thing called hype. I've also heard it's kind of useless from the YouTube guru, so we'll see. If you can hype this video, let me hear how this works out, all that fun stuff. But yeah, like I said, like, sub, share. If you're liking this video so far, let me know down below, out of the free anoles, which is your favorite? Which one do you need to know everything about? Which one is just an infection on your mind that is just making you think, God, I need to know everything about this anole. Now, folks, we're going to meet Puerto Rico's most overlooked lizard, which is Anolis kirgi, one of my little favorite anoles if you actually ask me. Also called the olive bush anole. It's a small, fast, and lives a, well, somewhat secret lifestyle. In the wild, Anolis kirgi sticks close to the ground. So close, in fact, sometimes it can be perceived as lower than just a meter above the soil. So, to all the people who know measurements, you're probably geeking out right now. Where they're going to be cleaning to, inside the bush, around the bush, and even the lowest part of the tree, and occasionally real tall grass blades. So, yeah, keep that in mind. Which is very different to a lot of the other anoles in this video, where we had one that basically uses the twigs no one uses. We had one that rolled the top of the tree. This guy just chills at the bottom. He's in the bush. He's eating the real tiny stuff, like the ants and all that fun, groovy stuff. Also, fun fact, this is probably the most easily to get Puerto Rican anole in this whole video, and probably forever will be, unless something dramatic and crazy just happens overnight. Anyways, next. In Puerto Rico's wet forest, there's a small emerald hunter, like the emeralds that villagers trade in Minecraft, right? Built for the treetops. This is Anolis environmental. Yeah, it's on the screen, by the way. But this is a trunk crown anole that rolls the upper trunks and branches. So basically think we're with our first pick, which was the crown giant of the video. These guys are basically just below them on the tree. So they, some parts of the island, they do interact occasionally, and not always in a fun manner if you know anything about how crown giants, well, do their thing. Now, folks, real quick, let's get back to the actual fun part of this video. You're going to find Anolis, it's on the screen, environmental, in rain-washed forests like El Yucatan and the Loch Reptile Mountains. That's also on the screen. They're going to favor the higher purchase, small diameter branches, so think smaller stick, like, width-wise, you can say, and even the occasional bamboo column. Now, going on to the wild, these animals are going to be doing a lot of interesting stuff, this and that, but if you ask me, this is probably the most interesting anole in this video besides the twig anole, because you can't make me ever say that twig anoles are worse than another anole species on the Royal Anole channels. Now, folks, if you've been a long-time Royal Anoles viewer, love you if you do. Thank you so much. Ooh, we doing cool stuff over here. You would understand by now that this video is not a normal video, but just simply off the fact that how short the subject topics have been, how limited they've actually been, and all this and that. That's because today I wanted to talk about something more than just anoles and what they do. Well, I did do that today, but very briefly. If you notice the common theme, everything in this video has all came from the same place. I've tried to do very different ecomorphs, aka what they actually do in the wild. Very broad and very different looking animals. That's because today I wanted our main thing to actually be how diversified anoles actually are. The fact of the matter is that most anoles came and dropped off a handful of species on one island millions of years ago. Go watch those videos about the evolution. And guess what? Over many years, anole radiation, whatever, they basically diversified into a handful of different species on each island. Many, many times. Just for the better perspective, there is exactly 5 anoles in this video that were talked about, right? There's 430 anoles that I did not mention in this video. Not to mention any localities, not to mention any subspecies, or on top of that, something that's really cool about anoles, any undiscovered species. Because a lot of people, when it comes to the world, they're like, oh, we've been here for this long, we know everything about the world. Well, we don't, especially when it comes to smaller animals. Now, there's an anole that was discovered all the way, I believe, in 2016, and this is a very unique anole. It has a green body, very thick, robust build, and these like 2 circle brown spots on their body. They were discovered in that year, and mind you, when they were discovered, it was already proven that, well, they're on the endangered list, sadly. This species is luckily in the reptile hobby to have some preservation. Hopefully we can figure out what to do actually in the wild. Now, just to put that in perspective, an animal was discovered and it was already put on your cooked list. So we need to take a special care when it comes to our anoles, admire them, really make sure the species are doing well, and we really appreciate what we have. Because maybe we won't have them forever. And do what we can to help support the wild populations. Mind you, I have no idea how to do that yet, but so, like and share, and I'm sure when I figure out a proper way to do that, you'll know too.